All right, 5 o'clock. I think we're live. Welcome everybody to our Meet the Product Development Team for Boulder Care. Just a quick note, there's two other sessions going on for Boulder Care. There's a fireside chat with Stephanie Strong, the CEO, and there's also a talk to the recruiter session going on with Lindsay, our recruiter. So if you have anything specific about jobs that you want to ask, head into that session with Lindsay. If you want to know more about the company, how we got started, more about the founder, head over to the one with Stephanie. We kind of expect people will bounce around to all three. So this one is an opportunity to meet the development team, to ask questions to us. And we'll take you through a little bit of what Boulder Care does, but primarily leave that up to the session with Stephanie. So to get started, we are a digital healthcare company specializing in opioid addiction treatment. So opioid addiction is something that all of you have, I'm sure, heard about in the news. There's more than 130 Americans dying every day from this. More than 1,000 people are treated in ERs every single day from opioid overdoses. It's a problem that continues to grow year after year, and something that we've seen grow even more so with COVID, with lockdowns. We've seen folks displaced from their peer support groups and from other means of getting help, in addition to the many barriers that already existed in seeking opioid treatment, especially a medication-based opioid treatment. So what we seek to do as a company is remove as many of those barriers as possible. So we have a team on staff of medical professionals who specialize in addiction treatment. So that's folks that are medical doctors, nurse practitioners, peer coaches. These are synonymous with folks in AA that are sponsors. So they've lived through it. They're trained in helping others live through it as well. And a third role, the care advocate role. These are the people that kind of the glue that binds everything together. They help set up appointments. They help the patients with anything that they might need outside of the direct care. So we, on the product development side, build the tools that help to connect that care team with the patients that we support and that we help. So on the panel here today is representatives from the product management side, the product design side, and then a couple of engineers. So I'm going to go through and introduce everybody, or have them introduce themselves. I'll start with myself. My name is Brian. I am the director of engineering at Boulder Care. I've been here since April of last year, so of 2019. And I joined Boulder Care after many discussions with the founders and with the leadership team here. I was really not thinking of joining a startup at that point in my career, but was really moved in speaking with Stephanie and speaking with Dave Lehrman, the COO, and just how they approached this problem and what they were really trying to solve for. And the conversations, when I asked them about what success for this company looked like, were founded in saving lives. It had nothing to do with this is how much revenue we're generating or anything like that. It was just all grounded in saving lives. And so that was something that really spoke to me and was primary reason why I joined. So I'll have everybody else introduce themselves. I'll start with Emma, the product designer.
Yeah, as Brian said, my name is Emma and I work on product design at Boulder. I joined the company last December, so a little less than a year ago. And my background's in design, but also social impact. And I've always been really interested in organizations aiming to make a difference in people's lives. And what really drew me to Boulder was an organization that was not only really looking to help save lives and work on a really pressing issue in this country, but something where the technological solution to that problem made so much sense. There are such immense access barriers for people to get what is really life-saving medication treatment for opioid use disorder. I believe the statistic is that 9 out of 10 communities do not have a single prescriber who can provide that medication treatment. There is such enormous access gaps, and that telehealth and a technological solution could make such a big difference. And to me as a designer, that was a really exciting thing to get to work on, and to work on technology platforms that are so impactful. Millen, I'll turn it over to you.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Millen. I'm a product manager on one of the teams we have here at Boulder. I've been here about 3 months, so somewhat new to the team, but what really drew me to Boulder was the really patient-first way in which everything is approached. I've worked in healthcare for almost 10 years, and I could say Boulder is really, truly the first company I've worked at that really strives to make everything better for our patients in everything that we do. In kind of talking to the leadership, like Brian said, you could tell that it was evident that the way things were approached were how to make things easier for a population of patients that are having a really hard time in their lives. And it's really fulfilling to be able to come to work every day and know that you're making a difference in that way. I'll pass it off to Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Antis, a senior software engineer here at Boulder. I joined for a lot of the same reasons that have already been expressed, all the saving the world sort of thing, good social impact sort of things. Another reason that I, as an engineer, joined is because of the reputation of people like Brian, our manager here, for having for working and focusing on good process and good software engineering practices. And that's a kind of an important thing to me. So if it is for you too, we should chat. And I'll toss it over to the other engineer on here, David.
Yeah, hi, my name is David Miner. I'm a senior software engineer. I joined Boulder right around when Brian did in May of last year. And kind of similar reasons. I was considering going to a larger company, and Brian kind of reached out, and after talking with the founders, it sounded like sort of an amazing opportunity to have the code that I write make a difference in people's lives. And also, I knew a few of the people who were joining as engineers, and the opportunity to work with a great team as well really appealed to me. So that is why I'm here. Do we have any questions from anybody?
Yeah, if you have any questions, just type them into that YouTube chat, and we will be happy to answer them. So let's see, take you through a bit of our development process, how we do things here on the product dev side. So when I started April last year, we had no dev team. So that was basically the start of building out a software dev team. And product dev side of the business. And so we had 3 engineers for most of last year. So I think when we were at TechCrawl last year, we did have 3 engineers on staff. So since then, we went through a round of fundraising and started expanding a bit. We added on a few more folks. And so in addition to having Emma come on as a product designer, Millen come on as product manager, we have another product manager, and we added on 9 more developers. So today we're sitting at 12 developers, 15 total in the department. We've migrated from having one team that kind of does everything full stack across the board to experienced teams. So we have 2 teams, each one focused on a different customer experience. So in our case, that would be patient experience and the provider experience side of things. So our philosophies on that are having cross-functional teams that allow for the individual teams to take an idea and build it, ship it, monitor it. So in control of everything from, again, idea all the way out into production. So we try to minimize the number of handoffs that we have as a team and just allow for more rapid development on that side. So we have started off using Scrum when we were a smaller team. We've since switched over to a Kanban method as a means of adding a little bit more flexibility in what we're prioritizing. So at a company in our stage, having flexibility is extremely important, as we look from 1 week to the next. We do have roadmaps that we come up with. We just went through a nice quarterly planning exercise, but that's really just a guideline for how we do things for the quarter. And we look back in every month and then every week on what it is that we're doing. Are we doing the right things? Did we learn anything in the past week, in the past month? Do we need to kind of change something that we're doing? We really value getting feedback on the stuff that we're building, shipping things quickly, learning, and then iterating on that. So that's currently why we're using Kanban. But that is one of those things that on our team is really up to the individual teams. So there's a lot of flexibility for the groups in how they want to do things. There's things obviously that we like to share across the entire department. But when it comes to finding ways to make the team efficient and putting them in a position to do the best work they can and build quality software, who better than the teams themselves to know what levers to pull and buttons to push as far as changes to be made in the process.
Yeah, I think one of the really exciting things about working at Boulder and kind of working in a company that is trying to tackle a problem that hasn't really been solved via technology before means that there's a lot of learning to do. And kind of what that means for our technology teams, our product development teams, is putting out a lot of experiments and trying to see, what we can learn. That means very, very rapidly trying to think about, what does an MVP for this feature look like? What is it that we want to learn before, investing or moving on to this to a different problem. Cool. Looks like a question came up. How does a product team discover user problems? Yeah, I think this is something that Boulder's format of having two separate teams really works in our favor. So one of the teams, as Brian mentioned, is focused on our participant app. We build the app that is used by all of our patients to video chat, text chat, complete asynchronous tasks with from the patient's perspective. And then the other team really works to build a specialized EHR, almost electronic health record, that allows providers and other clinicians to interact with patients. And that is being, custom tailored to the problem of solving opioid addiction via medication-assisted therapy treatment over telemedicine. And so I think, from that team, they get a really tight feedback loop from all of the users that are Boulder employees that are using their product. So you get a lot of feedback from care team members that are using the product every day and finding things that, they wish were better or that could be improved. From the participant side, it's a little tougher. We do, user research, surveys to the user to find out what it is that our participants like about our app or don't like about our app. We hear a lot from our clinicians that are talking to our participants via the app every day, via video chat. And we actually have them ask our participants, is there things in the app that you're having trouble with? This kind of helps us figure out what are things that we can improve on or do better, as well as taking input from kind of the industry as a whole of saying, what are best practices in telemedicine that we can bring into our app and kind of improve our experience that way.
Another question on when it comes to hiring developers, how strict are you in having X years of experience with a certain technology? I would say my general philosophy on hiring people is I just like to hire smart people that like to solve hard problems. If you know how to write code in one language or framework, you're going to be able to figure out how to write it in another language or framework. It's semantics to some degree. Obviously, there are certain benefits of hiring people that have a lot of experience in certain technologies. So I think overall philosophy is doesn't really matter, but we certainly do have to reach out and find people that have some experience in certain technologies.
There's a question on our architecture. So as Melon mentioned, we do have two apps. One is a participant app. That's a React native app that the participants have installed on their phones. And then the other app that's used by the care team is a web app. So that is a React app. And behind both of those apps is a server, basically a Node.js server, talking to them in GraphQL.
So yeah, interesting question about how our product dev process has changed with the pandemic. So I don't know that changed it much at all, other than we are a highly collaborative group. We do a lot of pair programming. That's made that a little bit more difficult. So the tools that we've used have changed a bit, but overall the process, we really tried to keep it highly collaborative. Things that you might have gone and grabbed the whiteboard and talked out, we will either do in Slack or in other tooling, or just grab a Google Meet and do it that way. But we did make the switch coincidentally to Kanban from Scrum right at the pandemic. It was not the driving force there, but it was made it interesting to not be in person. Although I would say I'm very pleasantly surprised overall in how the team has done with everybody being remote. I mentioned, going from 3 developers to 12 in the course of like 6 or 7 months. So half of the team has never been in the same office, which has been interesting. But yeah, it's worked very well, I would say. The team's done a tremendous job. But that's where tools like Slack come in extremely handy, making sure you do like face-to-face stand-ups and things like that. But yeah, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that it's gone as smoothly as it has.
I've been really impressed with this. Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, speaking of offices, we do have a nice big office that we are signing a lease on, or I guess we have signed a lease on. So whenever this pandemic does end, we will be back in a nice new office downtown. Emma, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've also been very impressed with transitioning to remote. And I think also as a telehealth company that's really built on the foundational belief that you could create really powerful, effective, and like transformative connection over video and message and across great distances. I think that being built into the DNA of our company really translates into we've also done well in terms of working remotely and thinking about how to make that collaboration effective.
I know I personally have gotten a lot more practiced at drawing up diagrams of ideas that I have instead of just trying to use my hands to explain stuff all the time. Yeah, like flowcharts, mind maps, even, all kinds of stuff like that. That's figuring out like good visual ways to explain ideas without like a whiteboard. I was never really good at whiteboarding in the first place. But now that we're I don't have a whiteboard. It's all the more reason to like learn how to use those sort of tools and like be like, okay, so this is kind of how I pictured this logic going, and like drawing out the boxes and arrows and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Bradley, that's correct. We have a single monolithic backend with the patient app and the participant app and the care team app both talk to.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense to have that kind of single backend, because the major part of both of these apps currently is the ability for participants to communicate with members of the care team, right? Either via chat or via video chat. And kind of that's kind of the center of both of these apps and exists in both. So yeah.
Yeah, so David mentioned our office space, which was something we put in motion as a growing company. We outgrew our office space right around March. So we had started looking for new office space. So in anticipation of this someday going away and us being able to be in the same room again, have a nice office space that we will have available at some point at the end of this year. But timing is everything.
I'm really looking forward to that patio.
I think talking about product development process and how it's changed with the pandemic, one thing that I've really enjoyed is tweaking that process on a week-to-week basis. Really reflecting on what are the things we miss about being in the same office or sitting next to someone, and saying, hey, how can we incorporate part of that into stand-up or into one of our weekly meetings, and then talking about it on a weekly basis to be like, is this working? Is this not working? How can we tweak it further? It's kind of like the same methodology we take with kind of putting features in the app, right? It's like, let's try something, let's see if it works, let's see if we want to double down on it, and constantly kind of checking in with the team and seeing how it's going. So I think we've found a few things that work really well for us in adjusting our stand-up process, for example, and a few things that seemed like they were more processed than they were worth. So we've kind of gotten rid of them.
Yeah, another word on that, on the that sort of thing. We do have every couple of weeks retros for the whole team, or at least I guess they're split up now between our participant experience and CareOps experience teams. But we have bi-weekly or semi-weekly, whatever it is, retrospectives where we go over the notes that we've taken about like the nice parts of our process and the less nice parts. And along the couple of weeks, we have this Notion board where it's kind of looks like a Kanban board, but it's like the columns are a smiley face and one's a frowny face. And then there's another one for like action items for after retro. But basically, like along the couple of weeks, when something good happens or something like, oh man, we should kind of fix this thing, it's kind of annoying, we'll make little cards in those columns. And then when retro comes around, we will have we'll have reviewed the board and like voted on the ones like, oh yeah, I was in that Slack thread. This is kind of a pain point right here. We'll sign our names on them, and then we'll just kind of go through them and be like, hey, smiley face column, look at all this great stuff that happened this week. And then sad face column, we'll get into like what are the things that we should change about the process, or like at least have nice good deep discussions about like what went wrong, or like what could be possibly fixed here. And then ideally at the end of each of those conversations we'll be like, okay, so maybe this thing will fix it, and we'll come up with some action items and things that'll be like, okay, the next time we're writing up a ticket, or that we do this thing or add this thing to a checklist or something like that, those become little action items that we can assign to each other. And then when the next retro rolls around, be like, okay, cool. So how did that go? Should we try something different this time? One of my favorite parts of working here, really. Always examining the process and trying to make things better.
Speaking of process, I had a question for the engineers. What do your days usually look like, and how often does your daily work involve interacting directly with PMs and design?
Yeah, I guess we do the typical morning stand-up, and I guess we all come together as a team, the engineers and the product manager, and then often design, and just figure out what does our day look like. At the beginning of the week, we'll talk about what does our week look like. So we try and, I guess I'm speaking for the team I'm on, not necessarily the other team, but just talk about what our goals are, where our focuses should be, what things do we want to pair on, and what questions do we have about tickets, that sort of thing. So that's sort of that happens in the morning. That kind of sets up the day for us. So based on that, be talking to different people, pairing up with different people to basically get the tickets done, keep them moving through the process. Chris, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that.
Not exactly. Yeah, and there's the stand up, which is great, kind of getting everybody on the same page. We do have a PM present on that, and we guide, like, they help guide like what we're doing for the day, like what is our daily goal, our weekly goal, how are we doing on our weekly goals. Every day we just kind of get back on the same page and keep our finger on the pulse on those things. Then the end part of stand up, which is my favorite part, we do like our off the board, like what's like the summary, like the 1 sentence summary of like what you're planning on doing today, and is there anything we should know, like you need leave a little early, go pick someone up or something like that, various things like that. We also have a little like what's going well for you sort of thing at the end, which is always a really nice, like thinking about a positive thing for the day for a minute, which is really great. Then typically, at least for senior engineers, is like what can we help unblock, what pull requests or what code reviews need to happen. What's keeping work from progressing? Is somebody having trouble with some tests or something like that? Is any of that stuff going on? Sometimes we write code. I've been writing a lot of code lately. I don't really know what else to add. Work on tickets, do code, help people out, go to meetings.
So let's try to get this last question in our last 30 seconds. So what challenges has recent rapid growth created for your team? So great question, given that it happened during the pandemic. I mean, it's just getting people familiar with one another. We do a fairly good job, in my opinion, of bringing people up to speed quickly. We intentionally paused at 8 engineers when we hired. Just the team had doubled, and we took a breather from hiring just to make sure that everybody got a chance to know each other and work together for a little bit. We took a look at the onboarding process and tightened it up a bit. We like to see people pushing code on day one. That's part of our onboarding process, and then taking a step back and really understanding, okay, what did I just do? So it's really just, trying to get people comfortable with one another, I would say has been the most difficult part of all that. And for new engineers, we look for people that are wanting to help out in the process. So we've talked about it a couple times, but it's very important for us to just find the most efficient process. So people that are interested in doing that, and that we think will really just come in and be able to participate in these discussions, both learning and teaching in various aspects of it. So I guess we're out of time. 30 minutes goes quick, but thank you everybody for attending. And there's a link there to our website and a link to our jobs page on there as well if you want more information. But appreciate you showing up. Stay safe out there.